also like to thank everybody for that vote. I'll tell you, I've lived here all my life, and I have a district passed first time in from massive building problems like that. Tells you a lot about this community we live in. It is a fantastic community. And I will say something about Evoke too, because I represent the kids that go to Evoke on their school board. The city of Norwalk, the Norwalk School District, also passed for them too. Huron County did not, but the people in our district gave them the yes vote for their $290 million building project over there. So again, it tells you a lot about the people that live there. Thank you.
That's why I thank the voters for not only getting it right for the district, but for getting it right for the future generations of kids. My kids won't benefit from it until my grandkids are in schools. And they're the parents that are taking the kids across the street. It's an amazing thing that the voters have done, and it's going to be generations. So good job, Norwalk.
I just kind of want to echo what everybody else is saying. There's been a lot of work that was put into this long before, it was put on the ballot to be passed. So thank you guys for all the work that you've done. And there's a lot of districts that are passing levies right now, so it just speaks volumes of how much this community cares about education. So I really appreciate all of you that supported, went out, put hanging, flyers on doors. It's really exciting that our community can come together and really support education in the future of our students. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I would just echo what's been said before me. I've sat in this seat for about the last 18 months, and I've seen examples of students, what I call rising to the occasion and meeting the moment. Just yesterday, we were in this building, we got to hear our athletes were overcoming challenges, overcoming injuries, and rising to the occasion and meeting the moment. Next door, there are kids that were part of the National Honor Society who are academically rising to the challenge and meeting the moment. In fact, earlier this year, as a part of a board presentation, we heard about an adult who literally saved a kid's life in the lunchroom, rising to the occasion and meeting the moment. We've sent kids across the country, we've sent them across the world even, just to give them the opportunity to rise to the occasion and meet the moment. I was so proud last week when our community rose to the occasion and met the moment. And I think this is so much bigger than a building, it's so much bigger than space, than land. I think it's a demonstration of our investment in the future. And I'm so glad to be a part of this community, glad we got it right, glad we did it.
There were 14 bond issues across the state of Ohio, 5 were successful. So that is 36% success rate. And fortunately, Norwalk City School District was part of that 36. So as Eric stated, our district is on the rise. We are given opportunity after opportunity for our student body, whether that be in the elementary or our high school students. And that's a huge compliment, and it's a great place to be in Norwalk because the community said, yes, let's continue to be on the rise. Let's make it more opportunities, more success for our kids. A huge stamp, and I appreciate all the support.
Anybody else? Great. Well, thank you again, and we are really excited to get started, and we'll be having a lot of meetings and asking for a lot of input, so be ready. Great, special presentation.
All right, continuing with these positive things happening. So it was a very fun, if you're in Norwalk High School, if you're not, a lot of success, and our student athletes came through. Our girls programs were extra strong in Norwalk High School. So we have 3 strong student athletes here. I'm going to do the handoff to Mr. Kenya, and he will speak to each one of our 3 seniors here this evening.
All right, thank you. It's always my pleasure to honor our girl power here at Norwalk High School and our 3 recipients of parades, because every kid who earns a trip to state gets a band send-off and a nice parade through the school, and that's quite an honor. And we have some exemplar examples to recognize tonight. So I'm going to have you come up one at a time. So we're going to start with Kylie in order here. So if you come up, so Kylie is our first ever girls state golf qualifier. So she has broken her own ground here at Norwalk High School. I think that itself deserves A round of applause for that. During this school year, she was named the SBC Most Outstanding Performer, and she holds school records for the low 9-hole score of
34.
34, so 2 under par. So she's got me in golf there. She has the school record for the low 18-hole score of 81, the low 9-hole average of 42, and the low 18-hole average of 84.6. She has had an excellent 4 years here, and your future plans entail?
Wherever I choose to go for college, I'd like to continue my golf career, and I want to major in early childhood education.
We definitely need those. So let's have one more round of applause.
Kylie, the time you finish your education, we'll have a beautiful building here. You know, like across the street, so like things are falling together perfectly here.
Great golf courses that you already know.
All right, next up, Anna, if you come up. So next up, we have Anna Osborne. So Anna, first of all, you're going to get to hear from her in a little bit. She's our NHS president, so she's got several parts in tonight's program, so we're always proud of that. So she was first team SBC in first singles, which made her the most outstanding performer this year in girls tennis. Of course, she was first team all district, a state qualifier, and like I said, president of NHS. She is involved in many of our programs, and we congratulate her on everything she's done. And your future plans are?
I intend to go to four-year college. As of right now, that choice is undecided. And I definitely want to continue playing tennis as a lifelong sport. So whether I play for the university or just my home team, I would definitely.
All right, congratulations to Anna.
Her skills are off the charts, so if you need it personal, like you want to decorate your home, your office, you can go to her and say, I would like this, and she can produce some beautiful art for you. I know that because I've taken advantage of that before.
All right, and then last but not least, we will have Zarina come down. All right, so Zuri's had quite a cross-country career. This year, she was first team SBC All-District, and she was also has been a 4-time state qualifier in girls cross-country. That is quite an accomplishment. So this next part I debated because I don't want to jinx it, but this is an impressive run because last year I messed up, or 2 years ago it said she's an outstanding 3-sport athlete. I'm wrong. Like, she's a 4-sport athlete. She, in the fall, chooses to do and participate in soccer, which our team operates at a high level, and also cross country at the same time. So she must love running. That is for sure. So that with swimming and track in the spring, she's on pace to earn 16 varsity letters in high school, which is unbelievable. And what that means to me is there's never been an excuse for Zarina. There's never been, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going out for this. She always participates in an age where it's so easy for kids to quit. So I appreciate that as a principal. She's been a role model to others. And again, she was also All Ohio her sophomore year in cross country. So we again join me in recognizing Zarina. And in your future. Sorry.
I'm committed to Ashland University. I'm getting to run here, and I want to be a physical therapist. So I'm going to the bachelor's.
You guys come down and maybe not with us behind.
Yeah.
We're not the best backdrop for sure, so. Just in case that's like.
Yeah.
Give us a long in there.
All right, thank you, ladies. Nice job. All right, next up is Kristen Cardone from Omaha. She is presenting to many different school districts, and I think we're one of the earlier ones on the slate. So, Kristen. Okay. That's fine. So you can kind of talk.
Flash drive? I have a flash drive. Yep.
Yes.
That's our-
So while she's learning that, just huge congratulations. I'm so happy to be back with this community. I graduated from Norwalk and have the honor, and I'll use that term loosely, of attending high school. So, yeah, you really. So it's just a touch, because I remember being like, in high school. So it's, yeah, this is just, yeah, I'm thrilled for our community. So thank you for all of your efforts. And selfishly, we actually have a levy in the ballot in the spring, and we're pretty happy to not share the ballot. So I'm gonna put that out there. I can just say that's okay. So I'm Kristen, I work for the York County Board of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So as Brad said, we're going around and meeting with, honestly, as many organizations in the county. So our goal is to get resources in people's hands to help them improve. So there's a lot of information here. I'm going to read through it quick because I'm going to 2 minutes. So stop me if you have questions. There's also a lot of information in front of you that I'll reference if I will. So the board is a government agency, but we don't fall under commissioners. So we are required to obtain our own funding. We have our own board. We have 14 volunteer board members. They represent a variety of sectors and communities throughout the county. For the Ohio Revised Code, our job is to plan, monitor, and evaluate the mental health services we currently provide, with the goal of ensuring. It's terrible, which it always is. So to make sure we have access to a full continuum of care for the residents of our county. So that encompasses prevention, treatment, as well as recovery, support, and education. So the board is not permitted to provide services. So we just serve as a funder and obtaining funding to help fund various organizations throughout the county. So starting with prevention, this is one of the board's priorities. Youth mental health is one of the board's priority areas, which is why school boards were one of the first main organizations we're trying to pick all up. So for the history of the board, we have spent the bulk of our funding on treatment. So we're funding services to address an issue once it currently exists. So obviously the goal of prevention is getting out ahead of it, preventing it or delaying the onset of mental health and substance issues. So this is really where we're trying to focus and building that up because it hasn't been very focused on that, unfortunately. And so we fund a variety of services, and I'm not going to go through all of those. I'll be here all night. I hope you'll have me now, so I don't want to keep you all night. Treatment, a lot of times people think of treatment as just one-on-one individual counseling, and it is, and a bulk of our providers, that is what they do. But there's group counseling, family counseling, inpatient counseling, detox, medication-assisted treatment is part of that. So treatment as a whole encompasses a wide variety of crisis services. And as I said, this is really the goal of where our funding is. And then recovery supports and education. So that's recovery housing, peer support, transportation, any of those services that help support and sustain individuals' recovery from mental health or substance abuse. Board initiatives. So while we can't provide services, we try to do a lot of other things other than just signing contracts because that's not what we're doing. We want to help, we want to make a difference. So we have a lot of various initiatives that we lead, trauma-informed communities, recovery-friendly workplaces, trying to hit really all populations. And how can we make a difference? How do we reach people, help reduce that stigma, and educate around mental health and substance use, but then again, making sure they're aware of what's out there so they know if I'm struggling, if my family member's struggling, if my neighbor's struggling, here's who I can send them to. So that way, in that moment, they're not just sitting there not sure what to do. So we have a lot of different things that we need to try to get that word out and to help educate and reduce stigma as we go. Just images, logos of the various providers that we fund, and there are quite a few. Some of them encompass different categories within that continuum, and we're just really grateful for all of them for the services that they provide and to have them here in the So why does this matter? So this is our quick response team and community data for 2022 and 2023. Our quick response team is a team that responds after an overdose. It's a team that includes a clinician as well as a peer supporter. Within 72 hours of the overdose, they go to that individual's home, provide resources, try to engage them in treatment. So we get data from law enforcement for those responses, as well as 911 data, which is what we expect. 2022 shows certain numbers. You'll see a big spike in mental health, suicidal ideation in 2023. That is the first year we started getting hospital data. And so that's been a challenge, obviously, it was a challenge across the board. But all of our hospitals now are sharing data with us, which contributes to some of that spike. So as you'll see, our overdose fatalities have gone down, which is a wonderful thing. However, our mental health and suicidal ideation as well as suicide. And so again, some of that is because of the hospital data, but some of that is just because we're seeing an increase from all patients, not just adults, but it's youth specific. So you have a report in front of you, it's green and blue. Karen County's mental health report. So, what was that, a year and a half ago, we had a conversation with Brad, actually, around substance use and what that was. And so we have a report, and when I say we, I mean myself, Karen County Public Health, called the ODS survey. And so all of our local school districts fill that out. And then we pull the data from that, and we look at that and say, okay, here's where we have issues. Well, based on the conversation we had, we came to quickly realize that the data we have is not bad at all. So we're thinking like, okay, I mean, this isn't great, but this is not bad. And we're like, no, it is bad. So we started having conversations, ended up meeting with all the school districts serving our county to say, what are we seeing? What are the issues? What are we missing? Because we've been looking at this, and obviously we're not looking at the right thing. And so in that report, you'll find a summary of the information that we gathered from all of the school districts. And it was pretty consistent across the districts. And this is also consistent from what I have learned across counties. So this is not something you need to hear on county. It's not like, oh my gosh, we have the problem just here. Our youth are just struggling across the board. And I can't speak for other cities, obviously, but in Ohio, this is pretty consistent. So some of the main identified needs that are pretty consistent, honestly, across age groups, because in that report, you'll see broken out preschool, elementary, middle, high families, and then looking at, what did staff say would be helpful for them. Resiliency skills are a big one, emotion identification, regulation, and again, this isn't chemical new information. It was shocking to us. I mean, when we pulled this and, met with the schools, it was just really, really good. So I realize it's probably not as shocking to you as it was to me. But it's, definitely huge. Feeling as a whole was a big one, looking at resiliency, parenting, relationship skills, screen dependence, consistent, again, across age groups. Communication skills, again, within the families, but also peer-to-peer. Vaping was, again, pretty consistent across age groups, which that one was shocking to us. As young as third grade is what we heard. Bullying, as well as training for staff. And so, obviously, I'm not going to give you that report piece by piece, but I wanted to give it to you so you can just see what we collected. The preschool group, also, I would just like to point out, was one that we were taken aback by and very concerned with some of the things that were shared, just as a new area that we haven't really. So what do we do? So we have a youth mental health group that is meeting, and we're taking that report and we're keeping it apart to say, what do we have here now that is meeting some of those needs and addressing some of the concerns? But then, and actually that's the feedback, we created this huge comprehensive list, we have all this, but this is important. So what are we missing? And so that's the step we're at right now, trying to answer that question of, this still isn't getting to where we need to be, so what do we need to do? Some general resources that we have available. Some of them I gave you one of actually our magnets, as well as our crisis cards. We have window cleans, have information, we have 98 materials. We have a lot of things that we try to push out on a regular basis to get that information in front of people. So things that are available to the community to use, we pass those out in schools on a regular basis. We work with your counselors, with your social workers, and have access to all of that. So at any point in time when someone is struggling, they can get that out. We also have the youth resource guide, which again is pulling in that list. So we put together, here's what exists in Huron County, here are the various services that are available. And again, like I said, there's a wide range of services that are available. So again, and that's coming back to where's it at and how do we help address a lot of those issues in there. So that is on our website, can be downloaded at any point in time, shared with anyone that you think would benefit from it. One of the things that we put in place, it's been almost 2 years at this point, is our mobile response and stabilization services. This is one of the services we consistently heard from schools, from community members that has been beneficial to them. So it is our mobile crisis team for youth and families, and the family or the youth defines the crisis. So if I'm in a crisis because I broke up with my boyfriend, that is considered a crisis. Or if you call adult crisis from the behavioral side, it's suicide and homicide, and they just cut it off at that. So the benefit to this is we recognize there are a lot of other crisis situations that don't have to be life-threatening. And so they will respond to that. They respond within an hour. It is free to all community members, the entire county, Perry County. They're available currently Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There is a push at the state to get that to 24/7. That's going to be friendly, but we are working towards that. Again, response to any distressing situation and meets the youth or family where they're at. So they don't. One of the barriers I think we've had in the behavioral health system forever is we make people come to us. And you want they don't come. You know what I mean? Or by the time they come, it's a lot further down. So making sure we're putting services in place before coming to people, and we're meeting them in their home, at a park, wherever the case may be, in the school, whatever that looks like. So some of the benefits of this service, it reduces trauma and it helps reduce that stigmatization of mental health. So in the past, we relied very heavily on law enforcement to respond. So if there's a crisis, you call 911, the police show up, they have guns, because they have to, you know, they're wearing a uniform. For some people, that is traumatizing. Especially when we're looking at our youth, that may not be what they need. So the team that is responding is mental health clinicians, it is a family care supporter. They're obviously don't have or uniforms, they're just wearing, you know, normal clothes. But again, it helps kind of reduce that. One of the other pieces that can be traumatizing for people is the losing reason. So a lot of times you go in there, you can sit 4 hours for youth placements currently if they need to be hospitalized, because there's such a shortage. So they're sitting in the evening, it's already a stressful situation. That's not helping anything because there's things going on around them that are also traumatizing and traumatic. So this helps to reduce that because MRSS can identify placement directly from their home if it's needed. And not going to rely on family for follow-up because MRSS, once they come out and respond to the crisis, if they are able to stabilize the situation, then they follow their family the next day. And they're able to stay involved with that family for up to 42 days to help continue to stabilize it, help them build some of those skills and refer to ongoing services. Additional youth resources that we have. So through contracts with the board, Family Life and Fireman's Counseling offer free diagnostic assessments for youth under the age of 18. So a lot of times if a youth gets in trouble, let's say, for substance use in school, or is struggling but not really sure if something's going on, they can go to one of those agencies. It's free to just say, is there something going on? And then we have sliding fee scales with all of our treatment providers, which helps make treatment more affordable. It's based on income and and then training. So we do provide a wide variety of trainings to the community, again, with that focus on education and reducing stigma. Ashley, who works at the board, is training on health first aid. And so that's a lengthy training. It's a heavy lift for a lot of people, so we don't get a ton of requests. But it's a 6.5 hour evidence-based training that helps people learn how to respond to crisis situations, to recognize the signs and symptoms. Mental Health and Substance Use 101 is a 1 hour training similar to mental health first aid, but just shortened and a little bit more manageable for people. Wellness and resiliency. So again, we don't just focus on diagnosable disorders, whether that's bipolar, schizophrenia, alcohol use disorder. Our goal is just to improve the wellness of our people, to help build that resiliency, to give people the skills that they need to be healthier and to feel better. So we try to manage, obviously both sides of that. Trauma-informed care, through that initiative, our goal is to help shift culture in our community from what's wrong with you to what happens to you, and just taking a more empathetic, compassionate approach to one another. And then QPR is similar to CPR, but for mental health. So it helps train someone on how to say it. So all of those are available at no cost to the community. And so we're located right across from Dave's Food Mart. So when it's nice outside with the windows open, smoke the fried chicken. So we are available from 8:30 to 4:30 at the office. Brad has my cell phone number. You can call me and text me anytime. It doesn't matter. We're here to help in whatever we can. So if there's anything you need from us, please don't hesitate. Sorry, I know there's a lot, and I apologize. There's just so much that we do, and we're kind of going to put that all in.
So for the training that you do, someone's interested in that, they just contact you to get signed up for what you're giving it, okay, wow, that's awesome.
Or if an organization wants like their own training, we can do that as well. So like they can just pick a day and we can just come to wherever they are.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You can just unplug it.
Okay, so we will go to public participation. Each person who wishes to address the board will be asked to give her name and address. Remarks should be limited to 3 minutes in length. If after everyone who wishes to do so has had an opportunity to speak, additional comments can be made up to a lot of time of 30 minutes. We will go to nutritional standards.
Okay, well, I'm sure you're disappointed that Mr. Kraft's not here tonight to do the nutritional standards report and bring those delicious foodies, but he is not. So basically, this is just a requirement for the National School Lunch Program that we do this yearly and talk about the policies that we have for our school lunches. And basically the same policies that we had last year. We have the school wellness, which is for the students, not so much for the adults. We have to have a wellness for adults too. The food sales standards and services, student health and safety, policy on students with food allergies, and eligibility for free or reduced meals, which has been overridden by the CPP program, so that all of our students are eating at no cost. And then student meal charges, which just addresses that even though students are now eating for free, if they do have charges from before, they are still responsible. The parents are still responsible for taking care of that. And then basically it goes on, and I'm not going to read the next 2 paragraphs. But basically it talks about what our safety measures are in the schools, cafeterias, with the hazard analysis and a critical point plan, which is how they like check temperatures and all of that to make sure that our food is safe for our students. So that was just an information report for you. And the report.
Thank you.
You don't need to go.
I do know that Mr. Kraft was at least, and my daughter might have ran into him at Walmart last night and gave him a little bit of grief because she hasn't seen these wonderful drinks yet. And I told her about them at our board meeting, which was what? It was a few months ago. So I was telling her that they're coming to the schools, and so he just happened to be walking out of Walmart and he got my daughter's request for those, and he was there bright and early, 8 a.m., and had these two with their blended drinks.
I know they had been at April, so.
Yeah, they were very excited. He sent a picture of Abby, very happy with her drinks. I appreciate that. All right, next, board item bond resolution. So this resolution authorizing the issuance of bonds in the amount of not to exceed $47,780,000 for constructing school facilities, including under the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program of the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, furnishing and the equipment for same, improving the sites thereof, and acquiring land and interest in land necessary in connection therewith, and authorizing and approving related matters. Wow, I'm never saying that again. Go ahead, Joe, sorry. If you want to.
Motion to discuss and then we'll.
Okay, yes. So we have a motion to approve the above bond resolution.
So moved.
Second, roll call, discussion.
Okay. Yeah, so we did, this is the first step in the process. We did have a Zoom call last week with, both bond counsel, which is the attorney for the bond, and the underwriter bond, the bond underwriter, which was Mike Burns, who presented when we were having our meeting. So we are getting started, and the first step is to sell the bonds. Apparently OCC did not sign a project agreement with us, even though we have passed it, and community has passed it, they still will not start the process until they see the money in the bank. So step one is to actually sell the bonds and collect the money to pay for it, which is part of this resolution. Once that's done, then we can get started on it. Another part of this, and I passed it out to you, is some information, and they just sent it to me, so I haven't had a really good time to read about it, but it's about an owner's rep, which is part of the process. Something that is recommended, it's not required, but it is recommended for any large construction process. Because OFCC has their process and their method, and when we start into this, and we have architects and contractors and all that, they're all gonna be working for, although they're working for the board and they're putting this up, they have their own interests. Having an owner's rep, the owner's rep works for the board, and their sole purpose is to make sure that everybody is working together and doing the best that they can for the board and overseeing the entire process. And they're hands-on, they then do it all, they don't just, like OCC will kind of sometimes just tell you, this is how it's gonna be. Well, if you don't know that maybe it could be different, then that's how it is, because they want to keep the same way. So read this over. We don't have to, we're not making a decision on the owner's rep tonight, but it is something that I think we need to go out and do. It's called a request for proposals and request for qualifications, where we ask different, and these are two different groups, both Brick Braden and the IMC to do owner's rep, and there's another one out there too. We would interview, the board would interview them and decide if we wanted to have one. And I think it's a good idea, but read over the information, and then if we have questions, we can do that next. Otherwise, the resolution is pretty involved. It basically outlines all the beginnings of the process with selling the bonds, collecting tax revenue, the underwriter, how we would sell the bonds, the maximum amount. I think what it was, how many pages on the actual resolution. So it pretty much covers everything.
When do we need to make a decision on that? I think probably a good idea of
We
what's
can
our
have it,
timeline.
we can have it next month, the request, do a request for proposals, and then everyone will submit it. They're looking at the bonds not actually being sold until the February, March, because it takes time. You have to do the preliminary official statement, POS. And a variety of other things. You have to go to a rating call, because we want to make sure that we have the best rating on the bond, which is what affects, like, care about movies, get away, a bond rating like that. And affects with interest rates, and we want the interest rate on the bonds to be as low as possible, because that's what everybody's going to pay, depending on what the interest rate is. So it's really important that we do that. So we're gathering all this information up. The attorneys will make up this official statement, and then that is what gets put out for the different investors that would be buying these bonds. And then there it is, the underwriter who actually will put the bonds out there for sale to everybody. But it is an involved process, so it's probably not going to happen until, I feel like I sent you out the timeline.
I think you did, I just didn't know if
So we're
in
looking,
December, we decide on this, and then we need to get the information of people to interview.
right, so we can start on the owner's rep part. The rest of it, we can't really start anything until we have the project agreement signed with the OCC. But the owner's rep, and if the board does decide to do that, then they would be at the table when the project agreement is
Right.
developed, because they will help put their input into it. Otherwise, it's just OCC saying, this is what
So
you
this
do.
needs to be done as soon as possible. Pretty much.
So we can go out and ask for that, and then you can interview, because there are lots of different groups, so you're gonna want to know what you feel most comfortable with.
With all this excitement, people like, when are we getting the shovels? Let's get this
Right.
started tomorrow. So I want the community to hear like the steps that have to take place of what that is, because there's a lot of work happening, but it's gonna be this work behind the scenes through January, February, March, and then it's gonna be those fun things of let's start planning, let's start talking, what should this bill look like, and going to other sites, other school districts, seeing what they have, what would work for us, what wouldn't work for us, like those things. So we had a district leadership team meeting today, and that's the question, because I'm with it, like, let's go, let's start billing now, but yeah, the financial piece has to be in order, and that's what's happening now. We're meeting with OFCC next week, so we're actually getting the handoff from Peyton Reel, our planning manager, to the project manager for them. So there are many steps. So we have a lot of invested through our locally funded initiative that we say, we want the special things that we added to the project, but obviously working with OFCC, they're gonna have their pieces and parts that we have to follow, so they will have a project manager assigned to Norwalk City School District. So that's the time frame there. If you want to speak to, the question was asked, is Garmin Miller, do they continue with us? Not, how does that look going forward, Joyce?
Garmin Miller will be one of the ones that the board will interview when the time comes. The OFCC is going to have a list of different architects for the board to interview, and in conjunction with OFCC, you're going to interview who you decide you want to go with. Garmin Miller will be one of those options that you have. And it's the board's choice. Once you interview them and talk to them all, who you want to go with. OFCC would only intervene if there was some kind of like issue, like if the architect was having a problem with other projects with other school districts somewhere and it wasn't working out, and maybe that had happened multiple times, they would say, no, you really don't want them, but obviously Garmin Miller doesn't have any issues with them because they're really on there, so. But that will come down the road where the board actually makes that official hiring decision for them. After you interview everybody and make sure that is what you want.
So there's no rush, but is there anyone, just I want to know, that wants to look at this more? Do you think as a board we want to have this representation? I've gotten to hear about it before, so I personally believe that having someone who's working for us only in this probably would be a strong move. Mostly because with the OFCC money, I think that they can control a lot of things, which I understandably, they're giving us a lot of money. But I think that having someone who's been through it multiple times might be a great person to have.
And there's also, the locally funded money that will be raised to the bond issue. The OCC is not going to have any say over that really. Those are all going to be LFIs. So we need to make sure, and we also want to make sure OCC doesn't try to use that money towards their part, that it stays for the LFI. So that's not a problem. We can go ahead and put that on December's agenda to do the request that we need to do done.
And the bulk of our LFI, as you know, is the additional class, like that is the square footage that we need to add, that space for our kids now and looking to the future. So that was
And
the
the
bulk.
busing garage and, all the things that maybe make sense for our community, but weren't part of the OFCC's, guidelines.
I guess my perspective is I think it's worthwhile to interview. I don't know enough to have an opinion on whether we should back to this.
Okay, okay. So we'll, go on to the next month and see where we come up with. Anyone else questions related to exactly?
I asked a very
Yeah.
general, sorry, I asked a very general question when we met, Eric. Are there good people that exist? Because we know in some fields, like it's a tough pool to pull from, and are there quality people? So the advice given to us, and so Ralph, Allison, Joe, Stan, myself, heard that, like, there are quality people that are there available to us. So I'm not making a recommendation against to do it, but it's good to hear at least that part.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're moving on something that might not be strong just because you have a title. I might not be impressed. They might not be good for us as a board, as our community. So it's good at least to hear that.
Any other discussion on the resolution report? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rispetto?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett?
Yes.
Treasurer's report.
Okay, well, we shall start with the October 2024 financial report. There was actually a lot happening in October. The first thing is the community eligibility provision, of course, where the students are allowed to eat at no cost. Because of the way that it's set up and the way that the state reports free and reduced lunches for children, they use the free and reduced lunch numbers for the economic disadvantaged funding. When you go to the CEP program, it makes all of your students look economically disadvantaged, free. Even though, I think we were at like 52% or 62% free and reduced. Well, that means that we're now funded for economic disadvantage for all of our students, which that increased the amount this year to $1.4 million. And I knew we were going to have an increase in this money going to the CEP program, which is why I tried to do this years ago, but they've lowered the percentages, changed the formula, so it's a little bit easier to do now. So that is an increase of $1.4 million of what they call DIPA money, disadvantaged people impact fee. It's restricted funding, it's general fund, but it's restricted, it can only be used for certain things. There's a list of only certain things we can use. It is additional funding. It is good because it's gonna offset our deficit this year. A lot of what we're gonna have to do is recode a lot of our expenses because, this is funding for, it's, the restricted uses are things that we're already doing. We already have school nurses, we're already doing OT therapy, PT therapy, we have different safety things, we have a reading program, all these things that the money is used for, but we weren't coding it that way. So now we'll be coding it that way to show that we've been spending it, because of course I have to report at the end of the year, how it is spent. But that's really good. And I was really surprised that it was that much money. Unfortunately, because of them changing, because of the federal guidelines changing, because it's all part of the National School Lunch Program, the federal guidelines changed. A lot of schools went to the CEP program this year. There were an additional, I think it was over 90 schools that went under the CEP program. Well, that changed the statewide numbers and the way they do the formula for that. So it lowered people that, school districts who were already in CEP had their funding lowered when all these other school districts came on because they squared the number and they were anyhow. So the state said, well, this can't be. Some of these districts are getting a lot more money and some are getting less. So the state is looking at changing it next year. Maybe using a different method, like whether it's a census column or something for what the economic disadvantage is. So unfortunately, it's one thing. So good news is, money's coming, bad news is it's coming up. And of course, the CEP program, Mr. Kraft is very careful about his budget, he's watching it, but it does, the way the percentages are set up, it is causing a little bit of a hardship in the food service fund. They're running in a negative the last 2 months, they've been in deficit. But they do also have to spend the money and then ask for it to be reimbursed. So there is that, he doesn't have his claims in for October yet. But it's possible that it may put a little crinkle in the fund before they have to subsidize that if you're, I doubt it, I think they'll be able to pull it off, but just realizing it's not Mr. Kraft's fault if that happens, but it's because he's done this good thing for him. So, the other good news for October, school district income tax arrived. It was in July, August, September, one comes at the end of October, and it was $10,000 over last year's same quarter. Doesn't sound like much money, but it's based on employment, so it's good. More people are working, more people are making more money. And so we're now at $196,000 over last year's same time. So glad to see that. We do have 2 more payments there. The smaller payments is basically the July one. And then finally, let's talk about that when we get to the budget. So those are pretty much what we had for the October financials. We did have one new CD that came off the end of September, and then it was on hold until October, and I think they were at 3.8% interest rate for that. Interest rates obviously are going down. You know, the Federal Reserve lowered the basis 25 basis points again last week, so we'll continue to see that as interest rates go down. The other thing, of course, about interest rates going down is when we sell our bonds, interest rates will be lower. So, good thing. Okay, so then we have the minutes for our October 9th meeting. I sent those out. We have a resignation, Jill Federoff, our EAMS coordinator. She resigned effective last week. She's going to Perkins to be their EAMS coordinator. Next, we have change of classification. Sharon Myers she's our Maple First secretary, she's our principal secretary. She is going to become the new EAMS coordinator effective today. So that's pretty important. EAMS is, a lot of the data is what the state uses to fund us, so EAMS is very important. It's also where a lot of our report card data comes from. When you see the staff, they look at your staff demographics, what their education level is, how many years they're here, all that comes from EAMS data. testing results aren't entered yet, so there's quite a bit there. Sharon's really excited to get started, and we posted that position, so hopefully they do, secretary, they can replace her in the work, but she's also really good at it. She's really good team. Then we have, the disposal, we have old bank uniforms, we have new bank uniforms, so it's time for the old ones to go. And high school science textbooks, biology and physical science that are outdated, and hopefully we can send those to the textbook recycler. Fingers crossed. But hopefully we don't, at least.
Yes.
We were safe like that. Then we have the 5-year forecast, which I'm thinking maybe we want to do and come back. So if you want to go ahead and take a recess now, if somebody wants to make a motion to do that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Rickenthaler?
Yes.
Mr. North?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett?
Yes.
I think we're this time, so I'm all out of order. Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you back.
We'll be back.